Coming up, a new tribal judge didn't always dream of the law. He first wanted to be a journalist. We have a feel-good fish story from the Columbia River Basin, and the writer's strike continues in California. I'm Malia Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amarawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start today in South Dakota, where tribal nations are calling on federal lawmakers to return the land of the massacre site at Wounded Knee. Both the Oglala Sioux Tribe president and the Cheyenne River Sioux chairman testified their support for Senate Bill 2088. The Wounded Knee Memorial and Sacred Site Act was considered before the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs last week. It seeks to return 40 acres of land to be placed in restricted fee status. Already, the tribes have attempted to get the land back. In 2022, they tried to purchase the land from a private family for $500,000. Chairman Ryman LeBeau told the lawmakers he lost relatives at the site and wants to use it for ceremonial purposes. In December 1890, the U.S. Army surrounded a group of Lakota and began to fire, killing mostly women, children, and babies. Both of the lawmakers urged Congress to pass the bill quickly and asked President Biden to sign it into law. Now heading east to New Hampshire, where an Indigenous filmmaker is being honored in a big way. Abenaki descendant Annalise Abomsuin was awarded the 63rd Edward McDowell Medal over the weekend. It has been awarded annually since 1960 to artists who have made an outstanding contribution to their field. Abomsuin is the first female filmmaker and the first Indigenous person to receive the medal. At the ceremony, best-selling author Jessie Wendt introduced the honoree and spoke of her impact on the genre as well as her activism in support of marginalized people. Over the past 6 decades, Abomsuin has received numerous international honors for exploring issues of universal importance. Previous medal recipients include Robert Frost, Toni Morrison, and Georgia O'Keeffe. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Travis Trueblood is a veteran of the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force and serves as a major in the West Virginia Air National Guard. He volunteers mentoring Native attorneys and acts as an advocate for children and immigration removal proceedings. In June, Trueblood was sworn in as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the Nottawasapi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. He visited with ICT's Jocelyn Estes recently and told her that law wasn't his first career choice. He initially wanted to be a journalist.
I learned even as I was going through school and I was kind of working on different newspaper projects, stringing along the way, that sometimes when you shine a light on different inequity issues, all you can do is shine a light on it, and your job as a reporter kind of ends there. So what's the next evolution of that, or what's the next step of that? And that's what brought me to study law. I wanted to see, how could I make a contribution to the world in addressing some of the inequities that I saw around me?
So after you graduated, where did you go to law school?
I went to law school at Florida State University, which, as a lot of people probably know, Florida State University is one of the universities that has a very prominent Native American mascot, which has been a source of controversy over the years. So I went there for undergrad and I went there for law school. So I had a front row seat to that while I was there. So even as a law student or an undergrad student, there were protests on our campus about it. I would constantly get asked as a Native student at the school how I felt about it, because there weren't many Native students at the school, and part of that might have been because of the mascot. However, for me, Florida State was an excellent choice, and it gave me a real opportunity because it was located in Florida State Capitol in Tallahassee. So while I was studying law, I worked in the governor's office for 2 Florida governors on Indian affairs while I was a law student. So the bigger opportunities for me were there, despite some of the controversy that revolved around the school.
What did you do after you graduated?
Around the year 2000, that's when Indian gaming really started to take off. Yes, there were tribes that had gaming before that and going back, but this is when it really started to take off. So you had in the legal industry a lot of bigger law firms that were attempting to meet that business challenge. Basically, they wanted the business of tribes who were getting into gaming. They saw big money there. So a lot of the bigger law firms in DC and out west were scrambling to hire Native American lawyers. They wanted that kind of diversity on their staff and in their offices, in hopes of landing these big clients. So even me, as not the best student in the world, however, I was a good, solid student. I was part of one of those big hiring pushes. I got picked up by a large law firm and went to DC and started working there in pretty complicated Indian affairs related matters for several different tribes. I only stayed at the big law firm I worked with for about 1.5 years before I ended up going out on my own and learning how to do this. How do you actually practice? What happens when you go to court? How do you do that? And so I set out to teach myself that. I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. I practiced in a lot of small county courthouses around Florida. And that's how I learned. I learned by trial and error. So I really am a trial attorney at heart. I am very comfortable in the courtroom.
Once you went out on your own, what kinds of cases did you get? Were you continuing to get clients having issues around gaming, or what kinds of cases were brought to you?
Literally everything. So I've been really fortunate along the way that I've had great mentors. And I hope, I can't speak for it because I don't really know now, but I try to mentor younger lawyers as I can through our different bar associations. But I hope and I hope that system and mentorship continues. I think it's important for younger Native lawyers to have older Native lawyers to help mentor them along the way. This profession is not just all about money. And frankly, if you're here just for the money, you're in the wrong place. There are easier ways to make money. If you're here because your heart's in the right place and you believe in the issues that you're working for, I believe you can have a really fulfilling career. I have no regrets about going to law school. I have no regrets about being an attorney. I love what I do. I love the clients that I have and the organizations that I work for. And it's really been a blessing to have people trust me with things that they're facing in their lives, or organizations to trust me, or tribes to trust me, to help them with some of the most serious things that they've ever faced in their lives.
So now, going from that kind of array of different cases that you took on as a private attorney, what was it that about becoming a justice for one tribal court appealed to you? And I'm thinking that possibly there are cases that come before this tribal court where there are issues that are important, of particular interest or import to you. So what was it about this job that appealed to you?
I think this is a fantastic opportunity, and I like what they're doing, how they have dedicated themselves to really living as a sovereign, setting up an independent and impartial judiciary. And so that's what brought me to them.
That was Nattawasappi Huron Band of the Potawatomi Supreme Court Justice Travis Trueblood. We'll be right back. In Washington state, several initiatives are underway that could benefit Indigenous communities. They include offensive historical monuments that are getting a fresh look, public school children who now have to learn about their Indigenous neighbors, and new efforts to bring the salmon back. Spokane Tribe of Indians historian Warren Saylor has been walking step for step on all three of these developments. He took some time to give ICT's Stuart Huntington an update. Stuart started by asking about the roadside monuments that some have called racist.
They do come across from a white perspective, or from, as the world goes, the history is written by the victors. So they don't come across from any point of view of the tribes at all. And that's kind of the intent that we've been going down, is trying to get, if we really don't want them removed, because these markers do tell the story of the land, that something did occur here historically. What at least for myself, and I truly believe the tribe, what we'd be looking for is another monument or something next to these, telling the same story from our perspective. And I think that accomplishes more than just replacing them or removing them. I think part of the history is knowing there's always two sides to every event.
Sir, I understand there have been some changes in school curriculum in Washington.
Now schools have to talk about the Spokane tribe or the Coeur d'Alene tribe or the Umatilla tribe or the Nez Perce tribe or the Yakima tribe or the Quinaults or the Macaws, whoever is closest to that school. And for me, I think that benefits everyone. In the last, in about 5 years, I've probably presented to about 16,000 individuals at middle schools, high schools, universities, different types of organizations, DSHS, Department of Health, law enforcement, just all kinds of different organizations. And I think it helps each one of those understand that tribes are still alive and living today. We're not still in the Stone Age. We're not forgotten. We're still here. We're still, productive people of society, contributing to the region around us. If it's for us, some of the major interests today or projects is fishing, getting salmon back into the waters where they hadn't been for 110 years.
Tell me about getting the salmon returned. Have you had some successes?
In my opinion, huge successes. So where we're at in eastern Washington, that's more of the Inland Empire in eastern Washington and our neighboring tribe, the Coeur d'Alenes in northern Idaho. The salmon have not run in the lower part of the Spokane River since the building of Grand Coulee Dam, which was in the late 30s, completed in the early 40s. Salmon back to the city of Spokane hasn't occurred since 1909, when the Little Falls Dam went in, which is on the reservation. Let me tell you a story of a fish story, why we know they'll come back. And then this will might take a couple minutes. So
I want to hear it.
So part of our effort, we have a 3-phase plan, working with 4 other tribes, the Colvilles, the Coeur d'Alenes, the Kalispels, and the Kootenays, along with the Spokanes. We're called the Upper Columbia United Tribes. We are in the blocked area. And so in order to prove to everybody else in the region, including or mainly the federal government agencies, that it was that salmon would return, we had to prove that. And so we went and found some eggs that we knew would meet our standards for our waters. We spawned them out, raised them at our tribal facilities, turned them loose within the Shimmikan Creek, which is on the reservation. So, and this is all of the effort to show that salmon, even today's salmon, even though they didn't originate from Shimmikan Creek, that they would still want to go to the ocean and come back home. So that's what we had to prove. And so we raised these fish to the right size. We turned them loose in Shimmikan. We placed these pit tags in them. And so these pit tags will sound an alarm as they go through some of these dams that have readers. So we turned them loose, and for me, I kind of forgot about them. And then I believe it was 6 or 8 months later, all of a sudden, ping. There were some trying to make it to the ocean. Over the 500-foot or through the turbines of Grand Coulee Dam, this 500-foot high dam, through Chief Joseph, and they were making it to the dams that there was fish passage. And so that was success. They'll go to the ocean. They know what to do. And so we get a phone call, because nobody knew we were doing this, and we get a phone call from one of the, I don't know if it was an agency or one of the dams. They say, "Hey, what's a Shimmikan fish?" And it was one of the Chinook salmon that we'd released. So we were found out that this was going on. And then I think it was year 3. So, salmon run in a 2 to 5 year pattern. So they'll start returning after 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years. Well, after 2.5, I think it was the year 3, all of a sudden, ping. At least one of them were trying to come home. When we only turned loose, I think it was 697. People got to realize the gauntlet that these fish have to go through. So if you're released in Shimmikan, you got to make it through 12 dams, either through the turbines or flushed over the spillways. And so for these to make it back, that's so 12 dams out, 10 dams back. Quite a feat.
So that someday
they know they want to come home. It's still their instinct, and it will happen.
Thank you for joining us, sir. That was very interesting.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. One of the greatest things that I've come to find out, and more so over the last few years, based on what's happening in our region, is that the more knowledge or history about tribes that go out, the better people understand us, the closer you can become as friends, and more things that you can work side by side with in advancing and benefiting kids and the general public. And all that information starts with that friendship with tribes.
The union that represents all performers on film and TV recently announced its national board unanimously approved a strike. Members of the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, joined the Writers Guild of America. Together, they are striking against the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, and it is a historic move. The Actors and Writers Guilds have not approved strikes at the same time since 1960. ICT's Paris Wise has this report in partnership with FNX from a picket line with Indigenous creatives at the center.
Our main goal today is to make ourselves seen and heard. With the Writers Guild, we have, the strike going on, of course, but when it comes to Native and Indigenous writers in general, people have yet to truly grasp and understand our specific role in storytelling and how crucial it is that we are the ones that are telling our own stories. So not only are we here to make sure that our demands are heard, to make sure that our stories are told by us, through us, but also to be able to have fair wages so that we can tell our story with full agency and also get paid fairly for it. But yeah, a lot of today is all about, uplifting each other and bringing about that native joy and being able to just be with one another during a time that most people would consider tumultuous.
In the midst of writers' careers on hold, the demonstration brought a sense of community and looking towards future generations of storytellers.
When we first started the strike, there was so much enthusiasm and people started doing these theme pickets just because, during the pandemic, we've all been in these Zoom rooms and nobody's been able to be in person. And we really got so much out of the solidarity of marching and picketing together that people started being like, oh, are you a fan of this? Writers' rooms started doing reunions and things like that. And then there started being Latinx picket, Southeast Asian picket. And so we decided to do an Indigenous takeover because there are so many more Indigenous writers today in the WGA than there have ever been, and we wanted to come out and be seen. And when we have a gathering, you got to have music, you got to have food, you got to have songs. And so we really wanted to bring that community to our larger WGA community. But we also wanted to make sure that people know that, when you see these dancers and you see these singers, these are people with voices that are demanding to be heard in the exact same way that we are as picketers. I've been in the industry for 13 years. So these are really your earning years. These are the years when you're you get shows and you start to really kind of lean on all the knowledge that you've built up and all that kind of experience that you have. And so to take this break has been really hard. But when I first got here, it was in 2010 and a strike had just finished. And there were a lot of writers talking about how they had put their careers on pause so that my generation of writers would have it better off. And so there's a huge legacy of writers fighting for that next generation. And so I'm honored to be here doing this.
Demands against AI and for fair wages make it critical for writers and stories to thrive.
Pens are down. So this content that we're consuming, it feels like there's so much of it. And there is. You put on any of the streamers and you have all of these options. But the shows that you love, they are crafted by people who have spent so many years trying to be able to tell a story in the most efficient, most beautiful way and find their most authentic voice and, pouring themselves onto the page. We can't take that for granted anymore. So a lot of these shows that we love are not being created anymore. And whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow, people are going to feel that. And as far as AI goes, that is very complicated, and we're trying to make sure that we're not replaced and we can maintain the creative integrity of our work and not be replaced by robots. It's loaded, but I feel like we're finally at a time where Native writers, the percentage of Native writers, I'm in television, so specifically in TV, is the lowest percentage that I'm aware of, but we're finally having more writer programs that are giving Natives a voice and opportunities. That's how I got on the Connors myself. I did the Disney Writers Program, and before that, the LA Skins Native American Writers Labs and Showrunner Program. So these things are finally in place, and we're finally getting a foot in the door, and now this. So it just feels like we are fighting as a union, all writers, but specifically the timing sucks that we finally are getting an opportunity. This feels like a family reunion because Native Hollywood is small. So it's fun to gather to show solidarity within the guild and just remind people how individual writers are and how we can't be replaced by technology and AI. We have very specific backgrounds and stories, and this is us demonstrating that with our Native culture. So the turnout is really amazing, and it's not just Native people, it's allies and people who support the culture.
Members of the Screen Actors Guild also recently authorized a strike and showed up in solidarity.
We just voted. I voted for it because I believe, we got to stand united in solidarity. If the writers are dealing with the situation, so are we. We're one, really. They're the ones who creatively bring these scripts, write and create these scripts, and then it's our job to give them life and give them breath. So anything, in my estimation, anything the writers are about, we need to be a part of it too. We're one. That's where the real solidarity is. First of all, it seems to me that we're the only race or nation that still is struggling for identity and validation in the industry. So I want to see writers, directors, DPs, you know, everybody. I want to see everyone on set that we're represented. We are still fighting for validation, fighting for a voice, and it is our time. We're not going away. We've always been here. We will always be here, and it's our time to shine like everybody else.
While the amount of Native voices on screen and behind the scenes is important, the quality of the stories is what matters most.
I mean, you hear it a lot that Indigenous people are the first storytellers of this land, and we have a place in Hollywood, and it's not something that can be manipulated by other people. If you look at things like AI, if you look at things like the algorithm, that are things that can change Indigenous people and our imagery, and we don't have control over that. And so what I'm always out here for is Indigenous people telling our own stories, no stories about us without us, and we have really made huge strides in the last 5 years, and we don't want to go backwards, and that's part of why we're out here.
In Southern California, Paris Wise, ICT News.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.